The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
Welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound, my favorites, and I hope that they are yours. And today we will be answering listener emails, and we have a question from Tonya, who lives in Austin, Texas. And Tonya asks, just this week there are 4 executions scheduled in the U.S. This will make this the busiest month. This is October 2025, the busiest month for executions since 2011. I'd like to know the panel's take on capital punishment, and should the death penalty be outlawed? That is an excellent question, Tonya. What do you say?
I have a feeling we're not going to agree on this one, too, so it should be kind of interesting.
It should be fun.
This will be fun.
Because I believe myself that we should not be executing people from the government. And that I think that there's a sort of permissiveness from the federal government that allows states from carrying through the death penalty. I believe it was 1972, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that capital punishment was unconstitutional. And, clearly we continue to execute people, for some heinous crimes. But I just don't think it's the part of the state to do this. And part of the rise of the shadow docket was for the Supreme Court to stay executions and refuse to let states execute people. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that the Supreme Court has been more or less mute on recently about executions.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, Tonya, you are correct. Today, actually, in Mississippi, they are going to be conducting one of the executions. On October 17th, there's one in Arizona. On October 23rd, one in Alabama. And on October 28th, one in Florida. And if you want to take it even a little bit farther, there are 2 right now in November, one in Oklahoma and one in Tennessee. So my question would be is, look at that set of states. What's the same in all of this whole group of states when you think about it? But I'll let you make your decision there. Believe it or not, Scott, I agree with you. I am not a big fan of the death penalty, because I've seen how many times that people have been convicted by a jury of their peers and the conviction was overturned. You can't remedy it. Our judicial system is based on remedy. So if something is wrong, you can appeal. There's a remedy. You have a course. You have an avenue of recourse. Once the death penalty is enacted, no, there is no recourse. There is no remedy. You can't do a do-over. It's not like a mulligan in golf. Once you do it, you do it. And like I say, I mean, again, with my master's in law, having studied this before, I'm against it simply because of. Now, I respect the judicial system. I totally respect it. I respect the jury system. I truly, truly do. But the fact is that juries sometimes get it wrong because they're human beings. They sometimes get it wrong. My issue with the criminal justice system isn't so much the death penalty, which I think they probably should take off the books. And yes, Scott's correct. The Supreme Court has held now more recently that it's okay according to the 8th Amendment of the Constitution, but it has put limitations. Such as, if somebody is a juvenile, the intellectually disabled, and how an execution may happen. So that it's not cruel and inhuman punishment in their mind. Now, I don't know, but death to me sounds like cruel punishment. I don't see how they justify that. But my issue has always been, we here in the United States have got to make a decision. Are we putting people in jail and incarcerating them to punish or to rehabilitate? And everybody always says, well, we're doing it. We want to rehabilitate them to get them back out onto the streets as productive citizens. Well, then you got to put an awful lot of money back into this. It's going to cost you a hell of a lot more money than a bunch of guards and a bunch of buildings. And I don't see it being spent. We don't do really good at rehabilitation. And that's a shame. That truly is a shame. In fact, there's a course I think me and Scott teach together. Well, not together, but separately. Tukey. Remember Tukey in California, Scott?
Sure, yeah.
Now, here's a guy, and again, this shows the thing. He was a gang member, convicted, and he was going to be sentenced to death. And then this guy basically devoted his life while he was still alive, while he was in prison, to reforming gang members, to getting them out of that lifestyle. And it went to the governor of California. At that time, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And they said, hey, look at all the good this guy has done. We want to commute his sentence to life. Schwarzenegger wouldn't do it because he said he hasn't shown enough remorse. Now, that was the argument. He hasn't shown enough remorse. If he had been allowed to live and still be incarcerated, he could have continued his work, doing the work that he was doing, and probably saving an awful lot of kids out there that had fallen into gang violence. And when we think of it on the long term, after he was executed, if I'm in the prison system and I've been sentenced to death, and somebody says, "Hey, you could do something good for these kids," my question is going to be, why? Why bother? Doesn't do me any good. Doesn't do me a doggone bit of good. Yeah, maybe the governor would commute my sentence, but maybe not. I don't know. What's my incentive? Is stick is the death penalty. Absolutely. What's my carrot? And if the carrot isn't that I can redeem myself or I can show that I can be a productive member of society even from within prison, why bother? I'm just not going to do it. So, I mean, these are the examples when we're talking about the death penalty. And again, I think Schwarzenegger got it wrong. I tell my students, I firmly believe Arnold Schwarzenegger got that one wrong. And for, the reasons I just outlined. So I just have a problem with evidence sometimes that juries take as being very important. And this is, like I say, this is what was part of the studies. One of the most unreliable types of evidence is eyewitness testimony. You could put 10 people into a room, and it's a great experiment. Put 10 people into a room and run somebody through the room and then give it like 5 minutes and say, okay, describe the person that ran through the room. You're going to get all sorts of different things. And there's a great book, if you ever want to study on the perceptions that humans have, Gorilla in the Room. And it basically was an experiment that was put out there where they had these people dancing and doing kind of things, and people focused on the people dancing, and they put a guy in a gorilla suit into the middle of the room, and they went back and they said to people, what about the gorilla? And they said, what gorilla? They never saw the guy in the gorilla suit because they were too focused on something else. And if that is what hinges upon whether somebody lives or dies, I'm sorry, I can't buy into that. I can't buy into it. We have a great system, but it is not infallible. And until we get to the point where it's infallible, then I think we can't do that. We have to give everyone the ability to have some sort of redress if it's necessary. I mean, what was that Tom Cruise movie where they could predict whether or not you were going to commit a crime? It was a movie Minority Report or whatever the heck it was.
Minority Report. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, until we get to that point. Oh, and by the way, it turned out that wasn't even infallible. So we're not there. So I'm going to say to Tonya, nope, I'm not for it.
And I think Pete Hegseth better hope that there's no death penalty, because so far he's committed 27 murders in the shooting boats in the Caribbean Sea over by Venezuela. There was another boat got shot this morning, or they announced it this morning. These are extrajudicial killings, the military being used in ways that it's not supposed to be used. And if Trump has immunity, as the Supreme Court says, for making official decisions in an official capacity, so be it. But Hegseth has no such immunity, and the people who are pulling the trigger in the military also, I believe, will be held accountable for this at some point or another. And I wouldn't say the death penalty, but I could see them spending a lot of time in prison.
Yeah. And Tonya, in your email, you did not express whether you were for the death penalty or not. So we don't know. But, Scott thought we were going to have some disagreement here, and we don't.
No, we don't.
Another Scott prediction gone down the tubes.
Yep. Nope. No death penalty. That should be abolished. No question about that. I wrote a paper that I never published. I don't know what happened to it. On the various types of manner in which people have been put to death in the United States. And one of the most interesting cases was the first use of lethal injection, which happened in the state of Texas, where two men robbed a car salesman and a used car salesman, and there was one bullet fired, and both men went and were tried by two different juries, and one man got life in prison and one man got the death penalty, and neither ever said which one pulled the trigger. And one man was executed, and no one knows if the correct man was executed or not. And as you say, there is no way to retrieve the situation. And the man who got life in prison never said whether he was the one who pulled the trigger or not. And with a 50-50 chance of executing the right person, I mean, it's just no. And moreover, death penalty cases have mandatory appeals. The cost to the taxpayer of these mandatory appeals is astronomical. The legal proceedings go on and on and on and on and on, and the bills are enormous. And very often, of course, the person does not have the money. The defendant does not have the money, and all this falls back on the taxpayer. And giving the person life, you give the person life and you keep them. Now, very, very few will ask for the death penalty, and Edmund Emil Kemper III, the so-called co-ed killer, was one who did. He asked for death by torture, but he was tried during the time where there was a moratorium, and so he is actually still alive. He features prominently in Mindhunter and actually helped the FBI, and also was questioned in the Idaho case with Brian Kohlberger about the case. So, I mean, even in prison, learning about why serial murderers, for example, do what they do. Ted Bundy, although he was, of course, executed, also was asked to assist in determining who the Green River Killer was, who turned out to be Gary Ridgway. But no, there should be no death penalty. This is something, the death penalty, I mean, that it needs to stop.
Yeah, it's kind of a machismo thing, I think, among certain types of people who are not deep thinkers. Brian Kilmeade, the Fox host, recently said something about using lethal injection on homeless people as a cure for homelessness.
Involuntary injections, yeah.
Yes, involuntary. I guess their voluntary injections weren't lethal enough. But yeah, and I remember Bill Clinton, when he was running for president, also executed a guy in Arkansas who was so mentally retarded and unable to put together coherent thoughts that he didn't finish his last meal. And then when they asked him, "Don't you want to finish your meal?" he goes, No, I'll get it after. I'll get it afterwards.
Yeah.
So, just like that level of mentality. And, look, Trump has pardoned a cop killer. That cop killing used to be a death penalty case. In New York, it isn't. But Jamie Davidson ordered the murder of a policeman that he didn't know was a policeman during a drug bust in by. And Jamie and Trump let him go because his lawyer was a friend of his kids. So, there's double standards. There's all kinds of craziness. out there with the with justice that has to do with the death penalty, but it's mostly that macho guys love to go around and go, yeah, I'm all for the death penalty, like it's something that they should be proud of. It's so stupid.
Yeah, it is. It is, and that thing I was referencing, it's called actually the invisible gorilla, and Scott will appreciate that. They're not dancing; they're passing basketballs back and forth, and you have to count the number of passes. And a gorilla comes out. He's on screen for 9 seconds. He gets into the middle of the screen, pounds his chest, pauses, and then walks off. Only 50% of the people notice that the gorilla was in the room.
Well, I remember reading
and
about...
now that's scary. I mean, but they were so focused on counting basketball going back and forth, they absolutely missed this huge guy in a gorilla suit walking on stage.
Right, and the point there is obviously that eyewitnesses are really unreliable. When Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald on live TV, people asked about it later, couldn't get the color of his hat right. Some people said he was very tall, other people said he was very short. People didn't know, couldn't remember exactly what happened. So yeah, the perceptions are very strange human things. We shouldn't be executing people over the perceptions of people. I totally agree with that. But it's again, it's a macho thing.
It is
macho. You ask any macho guy, he'll go, he's all for the death penalty. That's why I thought you were, Mark. I forgot about I forgot about your sensitive side.
No. Actually, it really has nothing to do with being sensitive. It has to do with having studied the law and having seen like I say, it's a great system. It's one of the best systems in the world that we have here. The problem is that it's fallible. And one of the things about the law is there has to be some sort of recourse. And there is no recourse if you're put to death. So, Tonya, I hope we have answered that question for you.
Thank you for the question.
That was a good question. Yeah, that's kind of off the beaten path from what we normally talk about.
Yeah, but there are a bunch of them going on right now, as we noted. Yeah, it is topical.
Yep.
Yes. So thank you, Tonya, very much. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And we appreciate your listening. Thank you so much. And we appreciate all our listeners. And if you are not yet subscribed on the platform of your choice, please do so. Subscribing is free and it does help support the channel. And we look forward to seeing you again next time on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening!